Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Mohawk Valley Sportswatch podcast here this morning. I'm your host, as always, the coach, Rocky Crigliano. The guys are going to be out today. Pags is out. Coach Medicis is out. The stat man is out. So I am solo here today for the hour. I will have on the voice of the Utica Blue Sox. Tim Best is going to join me at about 9:15. We'll talk about the upcoming Blue Sox season and much more. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, if you want to interact with the show here this morning, just put your comments down in the field. If you can do me a favor, if you are on, I'm still experimenting with cameras and audio and all that. Let me know if the picture's okay. Let me know if you can hear me clearly and it's not too choppy. So if you are listening this morning, if you can put a message in the chat, I would appreciate it, just so I can see that everything looks and sounds okay. A lot going on in professional sports. The saga with Scotty Scheffler this week at the PGA Championship. I was actually in the car driving, and I heard the story. And I made the reference that I think it would be like Derek Jeter getting arrested before Game 7 of the World Series, or Tom Brady before the Super Bowl. We'll get to that and more. I want to go through some of the local baseball scores as we get ready. I believe the meetings are today for sectional, for seedings. The brackets will be released. When they do, I'll make sure to share them. Baseball action from yesterday. Baldwinsville beat Liverpool 9-4. Weedsport beat Cato Meridian 13-6. Lowville over Thousand Islands 10-0. CVA beat Oneida 11-5. West Hill beat Skinny Atlas 7-2. VVS beat Chittenango 11-8. APW 9-2 over Jordan Elbridge. Waterville 6-3 over Hamilton. Sandy Creek 20-5 over Alexandria. Proctor beat Rome Free Academy yesterday 12-4. CBA beats Liverpool 9-3. Fulton over ESM 5-4. And East Syracuse Manoa beat Syracuse 8-1. In softball action, Rome Free Academy was not in action yesterday, but I will go through some of the scores here. Jordan Elbridge beat Phoenix 9-8. Stockbridge beat Poland 11-1. Pine Plains beat Brookfield 15-1. Hamilton beat Morrisville Eaton 9-8. Proctor 8-3 over Sequoia Valley. Lowville beat Beaver River 9-0. Clinton beat Brookfield 11-0. Sherburne Earlville 9-6 over Adirondack. Chittenango 14-7 over West Hill, and Hamilton beat Waterville 19-11. So once again, if you are tuning in this morning on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, I mentioned it earlier here this morning when I came on the air, but I'm still experimenting with some of the audio features, visual features here, doing it in a new setting. So if you're watching here this morning, let me know if the picture's coming in okay. Let me know if the audio sounds okay. So I can troubleshoot as I go. But I appreciate it. I'll get this thing up and running. I am excited to partner with the Utica Blue Sox. I will be doing some of their games on their live stream. Their first game's May 31st. It's a Friday night. It's home at Donovan Stadium, so I will be on the live stream for that game. I think we're going to be doing a pregame show, post-game show, and I think we're going to try to fit in maybe a weekly or bi-weekly show, just kind of recapping the week for the Blue Sox, or previewing the upcoming week as well. So Mark says it's all good. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that, Coach. I'm still experimenting. I'm going to be doing some things all over the place. I'm going to be doing some stuff for the Patriot League, covering, I think, Patriot League football. I'll of course keep the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch pretty much for local sports, and then the Rock Pile is going to be a separate platform as we go forward. NBA, we're going to last night, Dallas in a really good game. Listen, Oklahoma City is going to be there for a long time. They're young. I really like the nucleus that they have. But the Mavs 117-116, so they are in to the Western Conference Finals. It's on the hockey end, the Oilers, Edmonton 5-1 winners over the Canucks. That will go Game 7. And I stated this last week. I'm not a huge hockey guy. Many people know that I cover basketball, baseball, football, softball, you name it. I haven't missed much of the NHL playoffs. I'm a Rangers fan, so I'm happy that the Rangers will punch their ticket. And I think the Rangers are playing really good hockey as they'll take on Florida in the Eastern Conference Finals. I have not missed many playoff games, and I will say this, playoff hockey is awesome. It doesn't even matter which teams, even if you don't have a dog in the fight, playoff hockey is pretty cool to watch. A lot of action, the pace, the goaltending. I've really enjoyed it. I've watched just about every series, so I'm excited to watch the Western Conference Finals and then the Eastern Conference Finals as well. Basketball, got to hope the Knicks today in Game 7. The big question for them is going to be, are they healthy enough to get through to the Eastern Conference Finals? We'll see. I think the Celtics. I did a clip last night for a network. I did a clip called Celtic Fever. I think Boston's the team to beat. I think their path has been the easiest just because they faced teams that were injured, right? Cleveland had injuries, whether it's the Knicks, whether it's the Pacers. One of those two teams are going to limp to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think this is the best version of Boston that we've seen since the Big Three in the early 2000s. I think they've been the best team all year. The big question for me is going to be if they get to the NBA Finals, could they beat Dallas? Could they beat Denver? I'm not really sure they can, but I think it'll be a good matchup. I think it's the best Boston team that we've seen here in the last so many years, and it's going to be if they're healthy. I really squeezed in the Knicks today at the Garden. I think that place is going to be rocking. I do like the Knicks to win that series, even if Josh Hart's questionable. But I think Josh Hart's going to give it a go for them. But I think he'll give it a go, and I do like them at home. The home teams won every series game in that series, so I'm anticipating that the Knicks will find a way to get it done and get to the Eastern Conference Finals. So just waiting on Tim Best, the voice, the PA announcer for the Utica Blue Sox, is going to join me here in just a few minutes. The other thing I wanted to touch base on, the whole hype with Caitlin Clark in the WNBA, and I'm going to say this, I find myself now every night looking at WNBA scores, and I can tell you this much, in the last 20 years, I don't think I've watched, I shouldn't say that. I've tuned in, but I've never watched a full game. I've never woke up the next day to do a score check to see some of the scores, from the games and who won, or check out the box score to see who scored. And I find myself doing that now. I think the WNBA did her a disservice, though, because I think the first two games that she played are against the two toughest teams, two of the best defending teams. And you got to think about this. 6 weeks ago, she was playing for a national championship. And now fast forward at 6 weeks later, she's now having to adapt and adjust to the pro game. And if you've been watching some of the games, she's going to be just fine. She opened up her first game. She had 20 points, but the key stat line, the 10 turnovers, some of the passes that she made, she can make those in college. Not going to make them in the WNBA. Shooting, she's still the best pure shooter, I think, in the WNBA. And I've only seen 3 of her games and maybe a couple of the other games. She's going to be fine. She's going to figure it out. But I think that the WNBA did her a disservice because of the scheduling. They put her against the two best teams in the WNBA defensively right out of the gate. I still think shooting-wise, she doesn't need a lot of space to shoot. I think she needs the ball in her hands more. I think I saw yesterday one of the screens, I think she was coming off a screen, and they drilled her. And I think the WNBA, I think the league's going to have something for her. But I think the league should thank Caitlin Clark, and I think women's basketball should thank Caitlin Clark because Caitlin Clark put women's college basketball and the WNBA basketball on the map. Listen, there's a lot of superstars in the WNBA. There's a lot of them. I think this class of Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark I just think that class is coming in as one of the better classes that we've seen or we've paid attention to. And I think we just got to be patient with her. I think every team that she faces is going to come after her and give her their best shot. But I believe the first game that she played in, I think there was over 2 million viewers, which was, I believe, the most watched WNBA game in history of the WNBA. So again, the college game was great. The WNBA, her team stinks. I mean, let's be real. Her team's terrible. I would not be surprised. And again, I always say I don't like to see any coach get fired. but I would not be surprised if their coach gets fired, Caitlin Clark's coach from college gets the job and coaches. I could be off, but her team's terrible. So people just have to slow down a little bit and understand she will be fine. In the 3 games, 20 points, 10 turnovers. The first game, that's the opener. She shot the ball well. The second game, she struggled against the Liberty, but her team was terrible. She had 9 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. And then just yesterday, they lost again to the Liberty, but she had 22, 6, and 8, and they lost 91-80. So much better. But let's again remember 6 weeks ago, she played for a national championship in college, and fast forward 6 weeks later, she's got to adapt to the pro game. So she will be just fine. But let me go here to the waiting room. I believe we got Tim Best on, so let's see if we can get Tim on. Tim, what's going on, my friend?
Rocky, thanks for having me on, man. You know, when you reached out, I'm like, without any hesitation, had to come on the Rock Pile.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. It's exciting. I'm excited too because I'm going to be doing a few games up there. Excited for that.
Yeah, I think we're really going all out in terms of our production value, in terms of the personnel we're bringing in, yourself included, and a couple other people along with our typical college interns. I really think this summer, building off of last year, I think it's going to be another good one.
So how many years is this now for you for working with the Blue Sox?
I can't believe I'm going to my 10th year with them. I started with them when I was 18, and I'm still here.
So how'd you get involved with them? I know you've done some radio, you've done a little bit of everything on the mic. How'd you get involved?
So I remember I was a senior at Whitesboro, and I think my mom had found something on Facebook or somewhere else that the Brewers were looking for a play-by-play guy. And she's like, yeah, you should just shoot your shot and apply. And I did. And I don't know how, but as an 18-year-old, it was kind of miraculous that they reached out to me. They wanted to talk to me, or the GM of the team at the time, like, let's go to Duncan, we could talk. And ultimately, I got the job. And the first 2 years I was with them when they were the Brewers, I was their play-by-play guy. And then when new ownership took over in 2016, got the Blue Sox name back, I switched over to PA, which honestly, don't get me wrong, love doing play-by-play and being on the mic in that form. But I've really come into my own. I feel a lot more comfortable as the PA. It's a lot more empowering knowing you can have an entire crowd of people in the palm of your hand,
Yeah, absolutely. And, I want to ask your take on this because years ago, I remember when I was growing up, it was the New York Penn League, right? And it was still good baseball. But I feel like now, fast forward all these years later, I think the type of player now playing in this league, the quality of the teams, I feel like it's a whole different step up than what it was years ago.
I can get on board with that take. It's different compared to, the days when Adrian Gonzalez and Miguel Cabrera were on the same team, even having guys like Larry Walker, Jesse Barfield, to name a few.
Yep.
But I mean, look at the guys we've produced in the 10 years I've been there. My first year, Cedric Mullins was roaming center field for us. And then fast forward, we had both of the Varland brothers, Louis, who's with the Twins, Gus, who's with the Dodgers, Jared Solomon made the big leagues with the Cincinnati Reds. And then I'm trying to think of who the other guy was. Before my time, Ryan Yarbrough played for the Utica Brewers and on the team that went on to win the NABF College World Series. And they had the best record in the NYCBL that year.
Yeah, and I always have, I've had George on. I always talk to Doug Dillette on the show, and Travis Heiser, the owner of the Diamond Dogs, is really good to me as well. So I always have him on. And one of the fascinating things they always talk about is how much work goes in to putting a team together, the offseason, recruiting, staying in touch with coaches, and just how they bring players on. Some players don't join till midway through the season, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, case in point, I mentioned Gus Varland. We didn't get him till early July because we were running low on arms because some guys had reached their innings limits by the end of June. So we had to bring in reinforcements. And Gus, we picked him up in early July, and he ended up being a huge midseason acquisition and helped get us to the finish line of the regular season and then pitched in the postseason. Granted, he was the losing pitcher in a game that ended like 4-0. And the starting pitcher, by the way, for Elmira, Sean Jelly, who I think is tied for the tallest player in the history of Major League Baseball. 6'11" righty.
Wow.
Yeah, and he mowed us down through a 2-hit shutout. I think the game got done in like an hour 40.
That's Randy John style, right? Or Randy Johnson style, right? Randy Johnson was what, 6'10" or something like that?
Yeah, and Jelly has an inch on him, which is just bewildering to think about. But in terms of, we want to talk about the roster construction, like we just brought back our leadoff hitter from last year, all PGCBL first team selection, Benny Partridge. We just brought him back like a matter of only a couple days ago. And, we had to like do all the roster updates because I'm in charge of putting the bios together for the website. So I had to make sure I was notified of that personnel change so that everything could be updated. So, I mean, heck, things might change, before we even get to opening day on the 31st. Who knows?
Yeah, Tim, that league last year, that East standings, I was going back to look. It seems like it's always the usual suspects, but I think that Utica Diamond Dogs have kind of established that rivalry, always right in the middle of things. But you had Socrates there. Amsterdam was obviously the leader of the pack. But how competitive is that division?
Man, the East is a monster. When I found out last year we were going back to the East because 7 years ago we were in the East division, and that didn't bode well for us, unfortunately. But, George has a fantastic vision, and he wants to be up there and challenge Amsterdam, maybe even overtake Amsterdam. And he wanted the challenge. He got it, and he really rose to the occasion. I think people forget – after we beat the Diamond Dogs, we took Amsterdam to the brink. We forced extra innings at Shuttleworth last year. And if it wasn't for a minor fundamental mistake, if you go back and watch that East Division final against the Mohawks, Amsterdam laid down a suicide squeeze in the bottom of the 10th with one strike, mind you, and one out. And it was a terrible bunt. Avery Cook, Whitesboro guy, fields it perfectly and throws a dot to the plate, but our catcher didn't make a sound fundamental play. He went for a swipe tag rather than try to protect it with two hands. Ball came loose, runner scores, and that sends Amsterdam to the championship series. And I'll tell you, Utica wins that game if that game keeps rolling on with the pitching depth that we have. And honestly, if we win that game, I'm talking to you with a ring on my finger.
Yeah, and Tim, you were talking a little bit about the roster, and I was looking through it. Matter of fact, I was looking through it just early this morning. Some guys are back, so I see some new names on there. Where's the strength of this year's team going to be?
I mean, the bats are just ridiculous. I mean, we got Matt Williams, who is a bona fide power hitter. I think will slot in perfectly in the cleanup spot. And when you bring back your leadoff hitter and your 3-hitter from last year, Benny Partridge, all PGCBL first team selection, who is from Rockland County, and then Norris McClure, all PGCBL second team third baseman, who is transitioning to the outfield, which I think will bode well for him. He got a few games under his belt there at Spring Hill before he got hurt, but he'll be healthy by the time the season starts. But when you get your leadoff hitter and your 3-hitter back, the latter of which got the walk-off hit against the Diamond Dogs in the playoffs, and Partridge was the guy who started that rally and scored the winning run. You got to love what you see. And on top of that, I mean, we got a lot of speed as well. Todd Abraham, Utica kid, runs a 6'5", 60-yard dash. We have a bunch of guys who can fly and cover a lot of ground out in the outfield specifically. And we have guys who can, in the infield who can fly. Gabe Cavazzani. Year 10, I'm so happy we finally got a guy from my alma mater, Seton Hall, on the squad. And Gabe Cavazzani, middle infielder there, he can fly too. The one thing that it takes time to cultivate, the pitching started off slow last year, but once things started to turn around the 4th of July, pitching really came into form, where the starters were succeeding. The bullpen really strengthened as the season went on. I think we have some good pitching, arguably better than we did last year. So I'm eager to see what kind of team we're going to see in the early stages of the season, because I would prefer not to start off 9-10 and then need to rattle off 19 of the final 22 games to clinch the 2 seed.
You mentioned Seton Hall grad, so I'm a Fordham grad, and I was looking down all these rosters, and I said, I don't see a Fordham guy on the Blue Sox. I did see a couple Fordham guys on a couple other squads, but so you must have you follow Seton Hall hoops. You a big fan of Holloway?
I mean, Shaw is my guy, man. He was the associate head coach during the years that I was there from 2014 to 18.
Love him.
So I came in with the group that had like Isaiah Whitehead, Angel Delgado, Desi Rodriguez, Kadeem Carrington. I was lucky enough to come in as a freshman at the same time that they were. And Shaw played a big role in recruiting a handful of them. And Shaw really is a down-to-earth guy. I remember, because I ran the student section, as a lot of people know, and I went to March Madness my junior year to Greenville, South Carolina, and then Wichita, Kansas my senior year.
Oof.
And after they had lost to Kansas my senior year, we had stuck around after the game because, we know that Kevin Willard usually does a post-game interview with I can't believe that Gary Cohen's our radio announcer. I mean, what a gift that is. I mean, Gary's the GOAT, along with Dave Hopkins, who's very good in his own right. But Shaw did the post-game interview after that game, so we stuck around waiting to see him, and we went up to him after he got done with his interview. We thanked him and told him to thank Kevin Willard for giving one of the four of us a comp ticket to get into the games. And Shaw, he said, I want to thank you guys too, because, you guys have been so loyal and, came all the way halfway across the country to see us. And, you guys played much of a role in our rebirth as the coaching staff, the players and the managers and the whole 9 yards. The fact that he said we played, a bunch of students, we played as much a role in the rebirth of Seton Hall basketball. That just kind of shows the humility that Shaw has as a Seton Hall guy himself. And to see him, year one was a bit of a struggle, but once he cultivated his roster in his image last year, I mean, you saw the results. I mean, they were almost a top 25 team in the country last season and won the NIT in a dramatic game against Indiana State. I mean, that was one of the best Seton Hall games I've ever had the pleasure of watching. I mean, the only negative was I wish I was in Hinkle Fieldhouse to see, and that's a bucket list place for me to go to as a college hoops fan. I mean, Butler's in the Big East. I definitely want to go out there. Hinkle, everyone talks about Hinkle magic around the Big East, and one of these days I want to experience it for myself.
Yeah, that's one of mine too. I'm a Gonzaga fan, so getting to the Kennels is a huge one for me. But I was worried that he was going to take the Kentucky job because, and I know I'm getting off topic, but that's okay. That's what these are for. When that Kentucky job came open, his name was rumored at the top, and I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't chase the money there. Stay where you're at, because I thought Seton Hall should have made the NCAA tournament. I also think Indiana State should have got in too. But I was like, don't do it, because I think it's the perfect fit for him. He's great for the Big East, and I think he's going to do some damage. Or I think they're going to find a way down the stretch. They're going to be a top 25 team for a while as long as he's there.
So the funny thing was, we talk about the Kentucky job. He was rumored for the Louisville job around the same time, and he did interview for it apparently, but he turned it down. And the best one, Shaw's a quote machine. Like, he knows just the right thing to say at the right time. And the one I remember him saying, I think it was after they beat either North Texas or UNLV in the NIT. He said, I'm the coach of Seton Hall. That's all you need to know. Or somebody like that, something that doesn't need to be said. Like, Shaw, man. I mean, we in the Seton Hall community, we talk the term is Shaw's plan, is like a play on words for God's plan. The great song from Drake from 6 years ago. Shaw's plan, I'm telling you, like, it really came together. He got the right guys. He got the most out of Kadari Richmond. He made Jada Bediako into a really solid big after he was kind of so at a school that you're familiar with as a Gonzaga fan, Santa Clara.
Yep.
And he, Alamir Dawes was a tremendous shooter for us last year. Dre Davis, had the game-winning shot to beat Indiana State. It sucked having Kadari leave and only go to St. John's, which he could have gone anywhere else. So that stung a lot. But with the guys that he brought in, he's getting guys that identify with him and fit the mold of what he wants to build as his team, a gritty team. Those are the teams that he was playing on at Seton Hall and the teams he was coaching while he was at Seton Hall. And even, when he was the associate under Kevin Willard at Iona. So, I mean, I can't say enough good about Shaw and his staff. There's a reason why he led St. Peter's to the Elite Eight. And I'm not saying St. Hall's going to get there like within next year, but, Shaw his greatest strength is maximizing his guys' potential. And Seton Hall, it's been a while since they made the Sweet 16. The last time they did, Shaw was their starting point guard.
Yeah. I remember watching him play, man. He was such a fierce competitor. He was tough. That inner city, he had that mentality, man. He was a dog on the court, that's for sure.
Yeah, he had that dog in him before that term even became a thing.
Yeah, he was tough. So, Tim, let me get back to Utica here for a second. I want to talk about the home field advantage and playing at Donovan Stadium. And even what's it like for you? Because, again, I'm going to go back to when I was growing up as a kid. My dad, my grandfather used to bring me to that stadium. I played in that stadium, as a high school kid growing up. What's it like for you to be the PA guy, to sit there and say to yourself, I used to probably come here as a kid to watch these games, and now you're part of it. How cool is that?
It's honestly, it's surreal. So I not only do I do the public address in terms of, you hear my voice over the speakers of Donovan Stadium, but you also hear my music and my sound effects. So that's how I also try to cultivate the audience. Like, I do a lot of things that no one else in the PGCBL, and I don't think anyone, unless I'm missing something around summer college baseball, like, I do stuff that no one else really does, which, for example, messing with the other team during their batting practice when they're hitting, from 4:45 to 5:30 on a typical weekday night, where, I'm playing the worst possible music I can think of, like pulling stuff from the deep parts of YouTube. For example, I have a version of Mr. Brightside, but it keeps repeating the line like, and she's calling a cab, and she's calling a cab. Like, I'm going to I want to put them in mental lockdown and just take their heads out of the game before it even begins. So that's one thing I do. And on top of that, we started this thing a few years ago, and it was ironic how this came to be. So the song we play when we score is this song called Pump It Up by Endor. Like, if you've been to the games, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're a visiting fan and you've come to a game, you hate it with everything in every fiber in your being, because you're like, make it stop. Like, well, you got to stop us from scoring. But so 3 years ago, I really hadn't solidified like a solitary run scoring song. And our catcher, one of our catchers on that team, was from Butler. And he had told me about how earlier that season they had played a weekend series, ironically, at Seton Hall, where they played Pump It Up every time they scored. I'm like, I listened to it. Okay, all right, let's see how this goes the next home game. And it just caught like wildfire. The players were getting into it where like they would like straddle the railing of the dugout and start fist pumping, and even like using props, like taking like chairs from the clubhouse and just, raising it up in the air to the beat. The fans would start raising the roof and all that stuff. The crowd interaction, and like, that's what it's really all about. I'm a big follower of the Savannah Bananas, and, I see their business model, and, I'm not going to turn, the Blue Sox into the Savannah Bananas of the Northeast. But taking bits and pieces of what they do in terms of bringing the entertainment aspect into the game of baseball and what we do, Pump It Up is probably the heart and soul of it, because it gets the crowd interaction, and it gets the players going too, because they want to score runs so they can get the crowd going and they get themselves going as a result as well. That's one of those things, I can only talk about it. And I talk about it so I'm blue in the face, but you got to see it for yourself. You want to see what it's really all about and the kind of experience you get with that.
Yeah, I think it's just nice to be able to come to a game on a nice night. My son's 12, so my son loves baseball. We're in the middle of Little League season, and it's nice to be able to bring the family to the game on a nice night, sit back, relax. And some people have asked me just recently, and on the radio show, I mean the Rock Pile show. I mean, I interviewed Rob Manfred, who's a Rome guy who was fantastic, and I've interviewed some professional, college, some big name people, and people said, when you sit down at Donovan Stadium to do your first game, are you going to be nervous? And I don't think it's going to be the nervous part. I think it's going to be more or less looking out saying, I played here. I played here as a high school kid. I used to come here and watch the games, and now here I am being part of it. It's going to be pretty cool. I'm really excited. I get to work. I don't a couple young guys, couple of young interns from Syracuse. I think, Tim, we might do, and you're more than welcome to jump on, but I think we're going to try to do, whether it's a weekly show, bi-weekly show, podcast, and preview, the upcoming week, talk about the prior week. You're more than welcome to join if you got time.
Hell yeah. I was the founder of what I called it the Sox Cast, to play on words of podcast. And in fact, I'm explaining my own joke is a little sad, but regardless, having a Blue Sox podcast is important. Also giving our players the platform to show their personality and just talk about this team, because look, you never know who out of this group of guys is going to make a difference at the pro level. I mean, we've had, as you know, and I've stated, we've had guys make it to the bigs. We had a guy represent Team USA in the World Baseball Classic and finish top 10 in AL MVP voting a few years ago. And a member of the elite with multiple Hall of Famers, the elite 30 club, 30 homers, 30 steals. That's Cedric Mullins right there. You never know out of this group of guys who can make it to, get drafted, rise up the minor league ranks, and even make it to the show. You never know. So, I'm always more than game. And with the team that we put together last year, best winning percentage we've had since joining the PGCBL, 28-13. And to think that this team might be even better, that is so exciting to think about. And I think that's why I'm so amped up and fired up to, begin this season. We're only 12 days away, and, with the potential to, get even closer to winning a PGCBL title.
So, Tim, the last question I have for you, really, it's just a statement from you, is what are you looking forward to the most this year about the upcoming season?
There's a lot. The second half of last year was such a movie that it made me just so much more excited to recreate that magic this year. We had we were 9-10, and then everything changed with a walk-off home run on the 4th of July with all these fireworks going off in the background around the city. And then we followed that up 2 days later. Amsterdam, as you see the East Division standings right there. Amsterdam was 25-1 when they came to our house July 6th, and they'd won 16 in a row. And we were down 6-1.
I was at that game, by the way.
I
know.
We came back and walked off on them. And the guy that got the walk-off hit, he's the guy who hit the walk-off home run 2 days before that. And then what do we do the next day, first game of a doubleheader with Watertown? We walk it off again. Like, honestly, what I'm most excited about, every year I see something that I hadn't seen before in the years that I worked with this team prior. 3 walk-offs in a row, never seen that before. Who knows? We even had Will Shannon, who broke our single season RBI record, drove in 40 runs in 40 out of the team's 41 games. Big Oak was a machine. As you could probably tell from the walk-offs and the RBI record, and with the drama of the walk-off win against Mohawk Valley in the playoffs, and opening up with them May 31st, I couldn't be more excited. And with the promotions that we're doing our 3rd annual Autism Acceptance Night, our 6th annual Pink the Park Night for breast cancer awareness. That's in July against Mohawk Valley, July 20th. And our Autism Acceptance Night, partnering with Kelderman, that's going to be June 28th against also the Diamond Dogs, which is a Friday night. We do a lot of great stuff for the community. We got a bunch of locals on the team Todd Abraham, Tom Raffaello, who are on last year's team, as well as Mike Benedetto,
Yeah.
Holland Patton guy who was an all-star with the Cheryl Silversmiths in the NYCBL last year, so he's familiar with playing summer ball at a high level. And just with the guys we're bringing in, I mean, there are a lot of dogs on this team. We may not have the name brand talent that Amsterdam has with bringing in guys from Wake Forest and Mississippi State, Alabama, all these Power 5 schools. But if you go to a game, what you're going to love about this team is they're gritty. They have a lot to play for and they got a chip on their shoulder because they're not the Power 5 guys. I don't think we have any guys from Power 5 schools this year, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, we have one guy who's committed to Rutgers this year, going into next year, and then a pitcher, Andrew Goldan, who had pitched for Rutgers last year, but he injured himself, had to get surgery after his lone start last year, but he's fully healthy, and he's got some good stuff. So we really don't have any Power 5 guys, but they're a gritty team. They have a chip on their shoulder, and that's something that a lot of people are going to relate to, as fans. They want to root for the underdog. Granted, 28-13 record is far from being an underdog, but when you're going up against a Goliath like Amsterdam, they're an underdog team, and that's been our goal, to get to Amsterdam and beat Amsterdam. This city's deserving of a champion. We haven't seen one since, at least I still consider the Blue Sox in the pantheon of the Comets, UCFC, and the old Blue Sox. So this team hasn't seen a champion since the '83 team, that was documented in that book by Pete Pagliaro. Of course, I had to make that plug. This city deserves a championship, and if there's any team that, because of how long I've worked with them and the connection I have with them, if there's any team that I want to see win it more than others, and this is no knock on the Comets or UCFC, because I'm in year 10, the 10th anniversary gift would be fantastic. I want it to be the Blue Sox, who breaks that 31-year drought. 41.
Yeah.
I keep thinking it's 2014, but 41 years. Damn.
Yeah, that's my guy, Pags, who I was hoping he was going to make the broadcast here this morning, but unfortunately he couldn't be on with us. So good shout out to him. Well, Tim, listen, it's been good talking. I look forward to seeing you at the ballpark. But if you're willing to jump on and do a Blue Sox podcast with us, let's do it. I'll reach out to you. We'll make it happen.
Absolutely. I mean, we will 100% make it happen. Got to do it for the city, for the culture, and for your followers and anyone who, if you don't know about the Blue Sox, you'll know about them come May 31st and beyond.
Well, listen, man, keep in touch. Thanks for taking time this morning. Always good to talk to you.
Appreciate it, Rock.
All right, buddy. See you soon.
See you soon.
So that was the voice of the Utica Blue Sox, Tim Best. Been doing it for 10 years. I didn't know it was that many years, but Tim's a great guy. You can hear the passion in his voice when he talks about the Blue Sox, and I'm excited. I don't know how many games I'm going to be able to do with my kids' schedule, but I'm really excited to be part of it, and hopefully it'll be a fun ride this season. So I want to switch gears, and then we'll wrap things up here this morning. I don't know if anybody saw. I'm sure everybody heard it. The Scotty Scheffler thing. So again, I was in the car driving to work, and Pete sends me a message in our group chat and says, "Did you see what happened to Scotty Scheffler?" And I'm thinking, what the hell happened to Scotty Scheffler? I know he played well the opening round of the PGA. And I had heard on the radio, because they broke the news. I heard it on Get Up with Mike Greenberg, is they said that there was a bus accident where there was a civilian that was killed. And it was a security officer, unfortunately, that was killed in a horrible accident the morning of the PGA, the second round. So I thought he was involved in that incident, but he was not. He was trying to get to the event early. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of police presence, and I guess he tried to swerve off, and they said he dragged a cop, and, all I saw was the picture of him in the orange jumpsuit. And then, they pushed back the tee times and everything. And then he made the second round tee time and actually played pretty well in round 2. And then I heard this morning, just before the podcast, is the officer did not have the vest camera or the body camera. I think fortunately, I think he's going to get off with maybe a couple tickets, but he was charged with 3 or 4 counts. One of them was a felony. So some serious charges. But I was thinking of, again, to me, it's like Derek Jeter being arrested before Game 7 of the World Series, or Tom Brady before the Super Bowl, or Michael Jordan before Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And something like this was horrible press coverage for the PGA. You have the accident where, again, unfortunately, a civilian was killed in a horrible accident. And then you have the arrest like this when all the news and everything should have been on the golf tournament. And this is what took over the news. But there's still going to be some fun golf today. The leaderboard is tight. Colin Morikawa's at the top of the leaderboard with Xander Schauffele. They're both at 15 under. Tiger Woods, my 2 guys. I'm a huge Phil Mickelson fan. Who missed the cut. Tiger missed the cut again. And I don't know about you guys, and I don't know if you got any thoughts on this, but I always said that I didn't want to see the day where Derek Jeter couldn't throw the ball from short to first, or, seeing Michael Jordan's final days with the Wizard where he basically played with his back to the basket. Like that's not the way I wanted to see Michael Jordan go out. That's not the way I would have wanted to see Derek Jeter go out. And for the golf fans that are out there today, and you see the way Tiger has played, and it pains me to say and watch a guy that was so good, and then to see injuries have kind of taken over his career, and to see him finish in last in the Masters, which is a tournament he's been so good at all these years, and then basically misses the cut and is going to finish basically towards the end again, right? And he make the cut for the PGA. And I know he doesn't play a lot, and you got to play a lot now. I mean, years ago when he was coming up, and I said this 20 years ago at Fats Billiards in Columbus, Ohio, when I did the Rock and Nick Sports Show on an open mic night at Fats Billiards, I said, the question somebody had asked me in the stands was, do you think Tiger Woods will pass Jack Nicklaus's record for the most majors? And I said, no. And they said, well, why not? He's young. And I said, because number one, I think injuries, the way he hits it, how strong he was then. And you look now, guys have caught him. These young guys are driving a ball 360, 370, 380. Like, they're driving a ball a lot further than he is. And years ago when Tiger was young, Tiger just outdrove everybody. Tiger had the mental game. He had the short game. Then he had the incident in his personal life, and then he had the injuries. And to see him limp and struggle that bad on a golf course, I don't want to see it. Whether you like Tiger Woods or not, the competitor in him, to say, I'm going to play the majors. Okay, I get it. But if you're not really playing any other events and you're not getting any better, you may get lucky and be in the hunt on Sunday. And I think for the golf fans, even if you don't like Tiger, you could say Tiger in that Sunday red in contention, walking up 18 is like something I think would be a storybook ending for him to win another one. I just don't think it's going to happen. But I just think that he's got to sit down and say to himself, is it worth it? He's got the money. I'm sure he can do something different. I don't know if broadcasting is in his career, but he's got so much money, he doesn't even need to do anything. But it's that competitiveness in him, right? But we'll see. We'll see how the PGA ends today. I can't wait to watch the Knicks today in Game 7. You got the Rangers will be in the Eastern Conference Finals against Florida. Hopefully we'll see the Knicks and the Celtics. So a lot of good sports here, a lot of playoff time. The Yankees are playing some really good baseball right now as well. So happy to see that. My favorite event comes up on the 4th of July as we see Joey Chestnut, the man, the heavyweight champ. We'll see Coney Island, the best on surf and Stillwell on the corner there. I can't wait to see the hot dog eating contest. Yes, I think I might be the only show locally that covers and talks about Coney Island. So I'm excited for that. All right, well, listen, I want to make sure I thank Tim Best for jumping on this morning and talking Utica Blue Sox with me. Hopefully the video here, guys, and the audio sound okay. I'm still experimenting with things down here in my basement to be able to do more shows for you. So hopefully the video is looking somewhat decent. The audio is good. But thanks to Tim Best for coming on and talking Utica Blue Sox. I'm excited to join that team here in just a few weeks as we throw out the first pitch on May 31st at Donovan Stadium, where we'll host the Diamond Dogs there on a Friday night. So make sure, bring the family out to the ballpark. It should be a fun night of baseball. So on behalf of the entire crew here at the Mohawk Valley Sportswatch, Coach Pags, Coach Medicis, the Statman, and myself, have a good weekend, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Mohawk Valley